Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player game Hickory Dickory, designed by Sawyer West and published by Plaid Hat Games, who helped sponsor this video. The Royal Scavenger Hunt is about to begin, so gather your team of mice and prepare to jump, shove, and scramble your way to victory on the old clock by finding and delivering all sorts of treasures to Lord Cuckoo. There's a bounty of berries waiting to be won, so join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, put this clock board in the center of the play area and follow the included instructions to attach the clock hand at the center, turning the small hand to the 7 and the long hand to the 12. Then put these two sideboards into the spots cut out for them. Set this chain board beneath the clock, adding this pine cone weight to the rightmost chain so that the value 9 here is still visible. You can also set the chain board somewhere else on the table if it's more convenient, which we'll do in this video. And also set the die, the 2 cat paws, and the 50-point tokens nearby. If you have 2 players, set this blocker at the back of the minute hand slot, or with 3 players, use this blocker instead. With 4 players, no blocker is used, but we'll assume that we have 3 players in this video. These are the action space tokens, which you'll flip over to the sides that either show numbers, the sun, or the moon. The numbered tokens are then set face up onto the spaces of the board, showing the matching values of 1, 6, 11, and 12. Then take the sunshine back tokens and mix them face down, setting one randomly face up onto the sunshine marked spaces of the clock. You then do the exact same thing with the moon icons, but adding them face up to the spaces marked with a moon symbol. This is Itsy the Spider. You now find the 10 wild tokens which have this icon and place them on Itsy's web. All the remaining tiles you put into the included bag, giving them a good mix. Then draw 4 of them randomly to place onto these 4 indicated spaces of Itsy's web, and these tiles should always be placed with their pictured side face up. I should point out, by every number of the clock, you'll find an inner ring space marked with a diamond and an outer ring space marked with a leaf, except at position 12, where you'll find Lord Cuckoo himself instead of an outer ring space. You now randomly draw and place a tile onto each outer leaf, which means ignoring spot 12 since it doesn't have one, but continuing so it looks something like this when you're done. The cards with this back make up the quests, which you'll shuffle into a face-down deck placed here, dealing 2 of them face up into the spaces for them beneath it. Each person now collects the 4 mouse cards, 5 mouse figures, and score marker in their chosen color, and one of these hunt boards taken randomly that they'll set in front of themselves. At the bottom of your hunt board, you'll find outlines matching the shape of these 3 of your mice, and the values above their outlines indicate which inner spaces of the clock they begin on. Every player should add those mice to the spaces their boards indicate, which will end up looking something like this when you're done. Your mouse shaped like this is known as your scaler, and you place it with the other scalars here on the left side pine cone. Your remaining mouse is known as the scamp, and it starts out of play on your scamp card. You have a card for each of your mice except the scalar, and to help you remember which token goes with each mouse, you'll find their outlines shown on each of the cards. Now have everyone place their score marker on the starting space of the score track here. The cards with this back are the favors. You now go through and find the 4 which have an acorn in their bottom corner. Randomly deal an acorn-marked favor card to each player, shuffling any leftovers back into the deck, and then setting it face down onto the spot for it here beneath Itsy's web. You can look at your own favor card anytime, but keep it a secret from the other players. On this sideboard, you'll find the 4 player colors, and any color not being used in your game is covered by one of these tokens. You then add this priority marker to the color of the player who's the most punctual, or you can just choose someone randomly. And that's the setup. In Hickory Dickory, as the minute hand spins around the clock, your mice will be jumping on and off of it, trying to collect tiles, make deliveries, complete quests, scamper up the clock chains, and maybe even locate Lord Cuckoo's missing relics, all in exchange for berries. Have the most berries by the end of the game, and you win. The game is played over a series of clock ticks. To tick the clock, you advance the minute hand to the next number in clockwise order and resolve any mice at that numbered location. There aren't any mice here, so we just immediately tick the clock again, advancing and resolving the next numbered location, which just so happens to not have any mice either, so we'd tick the clock one more time, and now we'd have some mice to resolve. Over the course of the game, mice will be jumping on and off the minute hand, so the best way for me to explain how a tick works is to set up a variety of examples like you might see later. Let's say we had a situation like this. To begin a tick, as we learned, first advance the minute hand to the next number. Then, starting on the minute hand itself, resolve each mouse there, starting at the front. The player who controls that mouse must now choose to either have it stay on the minute hand or jump off. Staying is simple. Just leave the mouse in place. Then we go to the next mouse, and let's say it chooses to jump. If so, you move it to the outer ring of the current number. Then all of the other mice behind it move forward to fill in the space that it left behind. Whenever a mouse enters an outer ring during a tick, two things happen. First, that mouse collects any tile that might be there, adding it to any empty space on that mouse's card. If the mouse had no empty spaces when they gained a tile, let's say these tiles had already been on their card, then they just return any tiles that won't fit back to the bag, which can either be the tile they just gained or maybe one of the ones that they had gained previously. Then, whether you gained a tile or not, you may perform the action symbol showing at that number. Resolving these actions is optional, and we'll go over how all of them work a little later. Either way, the next player on the minute hand now decides if their mouse will stay or jump off. If a mouse jumps and there's no tile to collect, they still get to resolve the action on the token. And there's no limit to how many mice can be on an outer ring space. The mouse in this shape is called the scurrier, and when it jumps off the minute hand, it has a special ability shown here. Instead of jumping to the outer ring of the current number, you can instead choose to have it jump to the outer ring of the next number in clockwise order or the number after that, again, claiming any tile there and resolving the action at that number if you want to. But either way, remember, mice don't have to jump off the minute hand. The player can choose to leave their mice there. Once the mice on the hand have been resolved, we now take turns with any mice on the current number's inner ring space. And these are resolved in what is known as the priority order. This starts with a single mouse of the color under the priority marker, so blue in this case, and then going in clockwise order following the arrows, resolving one mouse of each color, skipping any colors that aren't on the current space, and going around as many times as necessary until all mice on the inner ring space have gone. So let's say we had a situation where these 4 mice were on the inner ring space. Based on our priority order, the blue mouse would go first. Then we come to the yellow color, and that player would resolve either of these 2 mice. Then we'd come around to white. This mouse would resolve. And since there's no more blue, we'd skip over that and come back to yellow, and that player would resolve their remaining mouse there. When you resolve a mouse on an inner ring space, it either moves to the outer ring, where it's resolved in the exact same way as a mouse that jumps to the outer ring from the minute hand, or instead, that mouse can choose to jump onto the minute hand. And it must do one or the other. It can't stay on the inner ring space. When a mouse jumps onto the hand, place it directly behind any mice already there. And if a mouse jumps on and there's no room, push all of the other mice forward to give it space. Any mouse that is bumped off jumps to the outer ring of that space, or can choose to jump backwards to the previous outer ring space, collecting a tile, if any, and resolving the action there. We'll see later how these cat paw tokens can end up on an action space. And if a bumped off mouse chooses to go to the previous space and it has a cat paw, they must keep going counterclockwise until they get to the first space that doesn't have one. You've probably noticed one of the mice is larger than the others. It's known as the scavenger, and it can hold more tiles than any other mouse, but it also takes up more space on the clock hand. If the scavenger jumps onto the mouse hand, depending on how full it is, it might knock off 2 mice at once. And if this happens, you resolve the mouse in front first, and then the one that was behind it. Here, let me set up another example for you, because sometimes when you add a mouse to the minute hand, it may push a scavenger only half off of the hand, but this still bumps it entirely off, and you resolve it, moving it to an outer ring space and advancing all of the other mice forward. Okay, so now we understand the ticking of the clock. You advance the minute hand, resolve all mice on it, going from the front to the back, and then you resolve all mice on the inner space in priority order. Now, before moving on, let's discuss trading. You can always freely rearrange tiles between any mice you have at a particular number. Here, the blue player has these two mice, one on the hand and the other on this inner ring space. So right now, the tiles they have can be arranged in any way that you like between them. This also means that as soon as a mouse claims a tile, they can give it directly to another mouse of theirs at that number. Okay, with that understood, it's now time for us to learn how to resolve the various symbols found on the action tiles around the clock. If an action shows this chain symbol, you'll climb the related number of spaces on the clock chain, in this case, 3 spaces. To do this, move your mouse here, known as the scaler, that many spaces up the left chain. If you land on or pass a space marked with this victory point berry symbol, gain them by moving your marker that many spaces on the score track. While playing, if you ever would earn more than 50 points, bank them by taking one of these 50-point tokens and then continue counting again from the start of the track. When moving up the chain, if you ever end a move on another player's scaler, you immediately advance to the next available free space. Also, if your move ever causes you to enter the leaf at the top of the chain, any movement that scaler has left is ignored, and you instead immediately earn the points showing just above the pine cone on the right chain. 9 points in this case. You then advance the weight 1 space up to cover those points and return your scaler to the bottom of the left chain where it can climb the chain again in the future. The next mouse to advance to the top leaf would then earn 7 points. This would advance, they would drop down, and so on. Just know that as this weight advances, it will stop so that it never covers the final 4-point space, meaning any mice entering the leaf after that will still always be able to earn 4 points. If you see this tile symbol on an action, it means you must spend the related number of tiles from the active mouse's card, returning them to the bag, in order to resolve the effect showing on the right side of the arrow. But remember, because of the trading rule, you could actually take a tile from any other of your mice at that same number instead. Either way, with the tile spent, you now resolve the symbol here, which represents visiting Itzy's market. This is Itzy and their market. Here, you either claim a single wild tile, which is any of these, and we'll learn the value of wild tiles a little later, or you take any 2 of the tiles in what are known as the discount bin row. Just know that when tiles are taken from the discount row, they are not automatically refilled. Moving on, when taking this action, you spend 1 tile from a mouse at this location, and then the symbol here means you gain your scamp. Your scamp is this mouse, which starts the game off the board. So when taking this action, you now collect it and add it to any outer ring space you like, resolving it in the usual way, gaining any tile there and resolving the action. With your scamp now in play, you'll use it like any of your other mice for the rest of the game. And if you resolve this action again in the future, you also move your scamp to any outer ring space of the board and resolve it, even if your scamp had already performed an action this round. Now let's talk about this magnifying glass search action. It will always be paired with a number, which represents the number of tiles you draw randomly from the bag to give to the mouse that's resolving the action. Or, because of the trading rule, you can really give it to any of your mice at that same location. When you perform a search using the spotter mouse specifically, it always draws 1 extra tile than the action shows, and then you must pick one to return to the bag, keeping any others that you drew. This action icon causes you to draw a card from the favor deck. You start the game with 1 and can never have more than 2 favors at the same time. If you would ever draw a third, just pick any one of them to discard without effect. And discarded favors are always placed face up here. You always keep favor cards a secret from the other players. And during a turn where you're resolving a mouse, along with any actions you decide to take with it, you can also play any number of favor cards that you have, resolving their effects with that mouse if a mouse is necessary for its effect. For example, by playing this, the active mouse would spend a tile and then you'd resolve a visit to Itzy's web as normal. Many favors will have a slash in the middle of their card, meaning you either play the card to resolve the effect on the left, or you use it as the tile shown on the right. And we'll see how you use tiles a little later. Just know that you have to pick one or the other. You cannot resolve both symbols. Either way, after playing a favor, add it face up to the discard pile here. And if this deck is ever empty when you would need to draw a new favor card, just reshuffle the discards into a new draw deck. Before getting back to the action tiles, I should mention this icon, which is only found on favor cards. This is known as a throw, which allows you to pick any one of your mice anywhere on the clock and treat it as if it is at the active mouse's number for the purposes of trading with it. These are the action symbols for performing a delivery, and to do this, the mouse that triggered the action now trades in all of the tiles they have on their card for points. And you can add to this any favor cards you have showing a tile, remembering to ignore any other symbols on the card. Since you can at most have 2 favor cards at a time, at most you can only add 2 extra tiles to the ones the mouse already had. To score the tiles, first gain 1 point for each. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. The tiles also have icons on them representing the different types of items you're trading. Look for the item you have the most of and score 1 point for each of them, keeping in mind a wild tile can count as any type you like. We'll say it's a spool, which would give us 1, 2, 3, 4 more points. You then check to see which color you have the most of and earn 1 point for each of those. And again, the wild can act as any color we like. Let's say it's acting as green, which would earn us 1, 2, 3 points. Now you'll notice I could have also said it was orange, which would also earn us 1, 2, 3 points. If 2 or more groups are tied for the most of a particular type, just pick one of the tied groups to score. So again, we earned 6 points for the number of tiles, then we earned 4 points for spools and 3 points for the color group. The game comes with 2 of these scoring example tiles that you can keep on the table as a reminder of how scoring a delivery works. And you'll even find a QR code on the back that takes you to an easy-to-use website that will automatically score any combination of tiles for you. Also note, as it says here, after scoring the tile points, you then check to see if you completed any quests. The quests are shown face up here, and if your delivery includes the combination of symbols and colors shown on a quest card, you've satisfied it as well and score the points showing on it. If a symbol has a rainbow pattern, it means an item of that type in any color can satisfy its requirement. At most, though, you can only satisfy 1 quest per delivery. So if you happen to complete both, just pick one of them and take the points for it. In this case, the only one we can satisfy is this quest by applying this spool and this wild to these symbols. We would then earn 5 points. Once a quest is completed, you move it to the discard area for it here, but do not replace the completed quest. With the scoring complete, now add any tiles from the delivery to matching empty spaces on your hunt board. For example, this tile could go in either of these 2 spaces. Wilds can be added into any empty space you like, but just keep in mind, once you've added tiles to your hunt board, you can't move them to different spaces later. Also note that tiles on favor cards are never added to your board. They wouldn't fit there anyway, that would just be silly. With that, you've finished the delivery, and any favor cards you used are now discarded, and any leftover tiles that you couldn't add to your hunt board are returned to the bag. This brings us to the last types of symbols we might encounter, and both of these are found on the tile that is always at number 12. When a player jumps off the minute hand here, instead of going to an outer ring space, they visit Lord Cuckoo himself and then resolve these actions. This very first symbol shows a tile with a star, and this represents any of the tiles that also have a star. These are known as Lord Cuckoo's relics, and there are only 3 of them in the entire game. The mouse taking this action may return any number of relics that they have on their card back to the bag, and for each one, they gain 5 points and draw a favor card. The next symbol on this action tile allows the current mouse to leap to an outer ring that is up to 3 numbers away. So that means this mouse could now leap to any one of these 3 locations, which you might want to do to pick up a tile you missed earlier or to resolve an action that you want to perform. I should also mention there's a favor card that you can play that also allows a mouse to leap, but keep in mind you cannot use this to leap if the mouse is currently on an outer ring space. They would have to be on the minute hand
or an inner ring space. I should also mention, you can't combine multiple leaps together. For example, I couldn't combine my Scurrier's leap ability with this favor card to jump up to 5 spaces at once. That said, my Scurrier could leap from the minute hand here to here using its special ability, stopping to resolve this space, and then use the leap effect here to jump again, since that was 2 separate jumps, not a combined single jump.
And those are all of the possible actions you'll find on the tiles. And remember, actions are always optional. You can choose to perform one action on the tile and not the other, or none at all. Either way, once all the mice on the minute hand, and then on the inner ring space, have had a chance to go, you tick the minute hand and resolve the next numbered location.
And you'll keep doing this until the minute hand gets back to the 12 and you've resolved that tick. It's then time to resolve the end of the round, which is broken into 5 steps, starting with cat paws. Here, you roll the die twice, adding a cat paw to each result. And if you end up adding the same result twice, just put both paws on the same space. Any mice on an outer ring space where a paw was added are moved to the next outer ring space in clockwise order that doesn't have a cat paw. Those moved mice don't collect tiles or resolve any actions. In future rounds, mice can never enter an inner or outer ring space with a cat paw. And when the minute hand moves to a number with a paw, just immediately tick to the next number. Continuing on with the rest of the end of round steps, you now advance the hour hand to the next number. If this moves it to the 12, the game ends here and you go to final scoring. Otherwise, you now move all mice that are on an outer ring space to the inner ring space at their current number. Then refill any empty quest card spaces with new ones from the deck and draw random tiles to fill in any empty spaces in the discount bin. You also draw a random tile to place at each empty outer ring space that no longer has a tile. Finally, you move the priority marker 1 space clockwise. If that would ever cause you to enter one of these blocking tokens, just skip over it into the next space.
And those are the steps for the end of the round, which are also known in the rulebook as chirp. Place the cat paws, move the hour hand, move mice to the inner ring, refill the quest discount and outer leaf spaces, and advance the priority. Mind you, you could also just advance the hour hand first, because if that would end the game, you don't need to roll the dice for the cat paws. But that wouldn't make a very cute acronym.
You'll then begin the next round by ticking the clock again, and you'll continue rounds like this until the clock strikes midnight, and then you proceed to final scoring. First, you earn 5 points for every row and column you've completed on your hunt board, and you're reminded of that right here. You then gather together every tile remaining on all of your mouse cards into one big pool, along with any favor cards you have showing bonus tiles. You then score these as one big group following the steps on the scoring tile. However, you do not score any quests or add any of these tiles to your hunt board. The player with the most points wins the game and gains Lord Cuckoo's favor. If there's a tie, then the tied player with the most spaces filled into their hunt board wins. And if there's still a tie, the tied players share the victory. The game also comes with rules for solo play and an advanced setup variant, but those I'll leave for you to discover on your own.
Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Hickory Dickory. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.